Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to another edition of Hidden Tracks. I am delighted to have Miss Callie McCullough with me today. She is a singer-songwriter with some traditional country roots and bluegrass, and as we say here, there's no genres. It's just fucking music to us, so listen to it. But welcome to the show, Miss McCullough. How are you doing today?
Hey, Shane. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing very well. Happy to have you here. I've listened to your EP, After Midnight, that came out. Gotta say, after every song, it got better and better and better. And unfortunately for me, a little more touching and weepy. And I don't like to have feelings when I listen to music a lot of times.
So many feelings.
So many feelings in this world that listen, it happens. Sometimes songs hit you. And it did. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's nice to talk to you. I've been checking out your podcast, and I was just going to say, like, what a milestone to actually start something in the year of 2020. So good on you.
Thank you. It was a long time coming, but pressure from people, and then someone finally just saying, "You're interviewing me tonight for your first show," and that was it. And I was like, okay. So, but hey, listen, we all have to find motivation in something. And it seems to me that you found your motivation in writing music.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I was a weird kid. I'm not going to lie.
We were all weird kids.
Right. And that's how we got here, because otherwise we would be, in suits and ties and doing the 9 to 5. So that's how we got here. I was a weird kid, and I walked around my little backyard, running my fingers along the fences, making up little songs to myself. And I've been doing it since I was a little kid. My parents were touring musicians full time, and I was just kind of born right into it. And then I really, picked up the songwriting torch when I was about 14 and just kind of ran with it, and, played in lots of different bands and kind of traveled around all over Europe and North America, and then landed myself in Nashville about, I guess it's been 7 years, which is crazy to think it's been that long.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, this is a Nashvilleian by way of Canada,
Yes.
Which is an untapped resource for music. I've had the opportunity to talk with several people from Canada. All are great. And I think it's weird that it takes someone to move somewhere else to get a little noticed when you should already be noticed. And, that's why we're doing here. That's why we're called Hidden Tracks, trying to find those hidden gems out there for, say, hey guys, this is something you need to listen to. And I mean, you're talking about being a little kid and growing into music, and that lends me to, one of my first questions that I always ask is, I mean, if you grew up around music in a musical family, that means music was around you at all times. But do you remember a specific point when you were a small child and the first time you heard something that was different than like a show tune or a theme song that was real music, that you just distinctly remember that song? Like that was a moment that changed for me?
Yeah, I think there was a period of time, I think I was about 8 years old, and we just moved into a new house, and my parents had set up, at the time, a CD player was a new thing, right? Because we're going back, I don't know what, 20 years.
Hey, I'm staring at 2,000 CDs and my CD player, my 6-disc changers right behind me. So
hey, you still have one. My car still has a CD player. I feel like a lot of people don't anymore. but a CD player was a new thing. And my dad was a big like rock, blues, folk guy. And then my mom was really big into country. And we just moved in a new house and they had set up, kind of all their CDs in this CD player in the living room. And I just started sitting in front of it, listening to them. And my dad was like, well, why don't you check out this and this? And at the time, I remember listening to a Pam Tillis record, who was, for anybody because I know we're talking about all kinds of genres, on HiddenTrack. So for anybody who wouldn't be familiar with the name Pam Tillis, was a big 90s country star based out of Nashville, and ultimately became one of my biggest influences. But I put on this Pam Tillis record called Sweetheart's Dance, and I was like, oh my God. And I just started that kind of took me down the tunnel of like, 90s country and then more traditional country. And it kind of spiraled from there. But I mean, yeah, I distinctly remember spending many, many, many hours of my childhood that I probably should have been outside or, doing something else, just sitting like 2 feet in front of this CD player, like blasting my parents' CDs and probably losing bits of my hearing. But I distinctly remember doing that.
You're bringing
years.
visions of the old sitting in front of the stereo listening to detective stories like that. That's what I'm picturing right now. A little girl with pigtails, like listening to detective stories with the old soapbox up there, like that. That's the vision that I have.
That exact image, except it had a blonde afro.
Awesome.
Like, yeah. And my hair is just a giant ball of fluff. So, it was basically that exact image. And then, and then I got my own CD player like 2 years later because they were tired of it, like me, like doing it in the living room. So then I would like hide in my room and do the same thing, for, I don't know, the bulk of my teenage years. But I remember, the first time that I got into some country music that I really loved, and it sent me down the tunnel of like, discovering, folk and bluegrass and roots and all these different like subgenres that were, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, at a time that, when you're riding on the school bus, like country music was not cool. I didn't, when I went to school, like I didn't want anybody to know that I played guitar or sang because I didn't want people to make fun of me. Because it was only cool to like be a tomboy and like listen to this like weird pop music that everybody was into at the time. So I had this, secret life of country music and, learned to play guitar and, singing all these old country songs. And my parents were out playing shows every weekend and I would get to tag along. And, we had very strict rules. Like when you went to the show, like you had to sit like exactly in front of the stage so that
drinking a Shirley Temple and eating the cherries out of it.
Well, like they wanted to be able to see you at all times because my parents would take me into a bar when I was like 8 years old. Like my parents would, if it had something to do with music, they would let you come, but you had to follow the rules.
So, that's pretty, growing up with that around you, is influence enough, but to find your own influence in a Pam Tillis and to kind of branch out and follow that tunnel as you did you ever branch out into, you mentioned the word, it's a dirty word sometimes here, that pop stuff, or did you branch out into any other types of music, or was it like you found what made your heart beat and where your passion was and just stayed there?
Like I've danced around a bit. I will say that I am, I've never been somebody that fangirls over stars or famous people or anything like that. That's never, like, if there's a puppy, I'll go crazy. I'm like, oh my God, look at the puppy. I love him. But like the most famous person in the world could walk by and be like, whatever. Like, can we get coffee?
Oh, yeah, that's Brad Pitt. Okay, he's sexy, but whatever. There's other sexy people.
Puppies, But I am the most fangirled ever for Celine Dion. Celine Dion was like, I was obsessed with Celine Dion.
It's a national treasure for you.
It's true, but and for someone who now I make pretty mellow, like kind of soft vocal styling, more of like an Alison Krauss vibe. But I spent a solid 10 years, like matching every vocal run of every Celine Dion song ever recorded. So I really went down that tunnel. And I got really into Carole King and James Taylor and Simon and Garfunkel. Gordon Lightfoot was a big one for me, Joni Mitchell. So really a lot of folk stuff. I was a big fan of the band Matchbox 20. That was like the one cool band that I was into. And Bare
I like how
Naked
you threw
Ladies.
cool on that.
Yeah,
But
I love Matchbox 20. I don't want to hear that they're not cool because Rob Thomas is a incredible singer. I was into Bare Naked Ladies, which is another Canadian one I was really into as well. And then, yeah, I fully spiraled into the country and traditional rootsy kind of stuff that like all of my friends were like, and this is going back, you go back 20 years and like Nashville wasn't like an it city that was super cool. I was like, yeah, I'd be like, oh yeah, like I can't go camping this weekend because I'm going to Nashville for 2 weeks. My friends are like, what's that? Ew. Like, ew, why would you go there? And now everybody and their cousins calling me up, we're coming to Nashville because so-and-so is getting married. And, like it's one of those things. So, it was not an it city. It was not a cool thing. This is all pre-Taylor Swift. Being a little girl with a guitar is like a way to get made fun of at this point where I grew up. So, yeah. So I don't know. It was interesting, but, I loved all music, but there are, I definitely felt that resonance and affinity for certain sounds that, yeah, I think it feels like going home, like it feels like coming home and that's what you want to turn on.
So if you were, if you kept to yourself and you were a secret musician to your friends, and how did you learn to get that outlet to just do it and play?
Yeah. Probably about the time I started to be about 14, 15, sorry, I had the allergies. Right in just kind of the town, like 10 minutes up the road, somebody opened a music store, and it was kind of the first music store. And it was this young guy, and he had moved from Toronto, and he had kind of toured all over the world. And he opened a music store, and it like seemed like a really cool place. And my parents were like, all right, we got to check it out. So they took me down there, and they were like, you know what? Like you should, it's not really that you need guitar lessons, but you need to get plugged into something and into a community. So they signed me up for guitar lessons, and I ended up working at that music store like within 2 months. And it kind of collected all these young musicians that everybody was kind of off on their own because you're in the middle of nowhere. Like there's not really anywhere to play. It's all these things. And, I credit this so much because, out of nowhere, somebody moved to town, they opened a music store, and they built a community, and they gave all these like kind of misfit kids a place to belong and kind of like brought us all together. And then we were like, oh, like you like music too? Like that's cool. Like, do you like country? Should we like start a band? And then it spiraled and so I got out and I started playing these little gigs. Just, like you go out and you play your 5 songs or whatever at some, town festival or whatever. And it started to build my confidence, and then I started running like the coffee house at my high school. And then just sort of by accident started a band with my mom because we would always be at these, outdoor, my parents, all their friends were hippies and stuff. And they would have these outdoor garden parties and jam sessions. So I would always go and I'd be hanging out with all these people that are 30 years older than me. They're into all the good music. And we'd be jamming and hanging out. And my mom and I started like singing a John Prine song together. And everybody was like, are you guys going to start a band? Like what's going on here? Because this is amazing. And so we literally somebody offered us a gig the next week and we were like, okay, I guess like we're going to learn a 1-hour show. And it spiraled and we started booking gigs and then we would get, little TV slots and different things. And before you know it, like we've made 2 albums and we're touring all over and like 5, 6, 7 years has gone by, but music is one of those things where you go where it leads you a little bit. Like, I guess for me, I probably should have been more strategic in my life plans, but I just kind of let, the flow of the music that I wanted to make lead the way. And we had a really good run and we got to do a lot of cool stuff. And I really learned the ropes in that band. At one point I was in a Celtic band for a while, which was really fun. And we got to And then, I was like 14 when that started. So I would go to all these Callie jams, and you'd be like sitting in an Irish pub on a Sunday afternoon, like super underage, like drinking club soda, like learning all these, Irish traditional standards on guitar. And I did that. And then, eventually I was on tour in California with my mom, and I just I started to kind of feel a pull and an inkling. And I was like, I've been going back and forth to Nashville for years while I was in college. And I was like, you know what? I want to go stand on my own 2 feet. I want to start something completely on my own terms. And I'm going to go focus on being a writer and build my own thing. And that's how I landed here 7 years ago.
Wow.
I know, it's just talking in circles. She makes no sense.
No. I mean, that's what this is for. Your story. I mean, to start playing with your mother. I mean, I don't even know where to start with all this story, but to start playing with your mother, and I mean, going back to the sense of community. There's one thing that I think is missing in this world today, is that places, once they get big, they kind of lose that sense of community. And no knock on Nashville. I love Nashville, but it kind of has got to that point where you mentioned it. Oh, someone's getting married there. And, past couple times I've been there, walking down the street, all I want to do is go find music, and I'm bumping into all these bachelorette parties, and they're hammer. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of this situation. But that sense of community to start something is amazing, and all the credit to the gentleman who brought that music store to there to kind of lend credence to what you should have been doing and being involved in music.
Yeah. And, to that, Nashville has changed a lot. You're right, because I started coming here when I was, I don't know, maybe 17. So it's been, being from Canada, of course, there's an immigration component. So I couldn't just up and move right away. And, but so I've been around for a good number of years, and I have seen a lot of changes, but I think ultimately the story with anything to do with music or life in general, maybe not that I'm a philosopher, but you just got to find your people, Yeah. Because there's so much community here, but it is really easy to get lost in kind of the shuffle as well. So, when you find people that you connect with musically or personally or whatever it is, you just hang on to that and build from there. So, I mean, we do have like our little off the beaten path hidden treasures that we try to protect from the tourists a little bit,
Yeah. Well, that's when my wife and I went there, I said, let's stay as far out of town as we can be, and let's find the places where people that live here go, not where everybody that comes here goes. And that was the first time we were there. And that's when we started finding all and walking into a music shop, this old little music shop run by a woman with guitars, and then just meeting a musician there, and nicest guy in the world, and invites us to his show. I'm like, that's what I want. That's that community that brings people together. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. And all of a sudden we get each other's life story. And that's what I love. It's when you're on that big street where everyone's going, you don't get that intimate community feeling.
Yeah. You want that organic, happening that is like, sometimes those days feel rare, Yeah.
I long for those days when they're not around. So playing with your mother, let me get to that. As a teenager with a mother who's basically pretty cool because she loves music and she plays music, how was that dynamic? I mean, that's, when you're a teenager, you got to be pretty lucky if your parents are your best friend.
Yeah, we certainly had our spats for sure, but for the most part, we got along really well, right? Because I wanted to be out playing music, and so did she, and again, like I had, done other projects with other people as well, but there was a musical chemistry that was really cool, those family harmonies, and you can remember, like I have those bluegrass influences where 90% of bluegrass bands are like family bands,
yeah,
right?
All family bands. So they're like
the
Murphy family band, and we've I played a skull tin can one day, like, in,
Yeah, well, they were like, "Hey, like we need another mandolin player, honey. Let's have another kid." Like that's, you
yeah.
know, and my dad was really cool. He had a home studio, and he kind of showed me the ropes around some of that stuff a bit. Yeah, my parents were really cool. I mean, they tried really hard to get me to get a real job because they were like, "This is not an easy life." So, go to college. But pretty much the minute I was graduating, I was like actually I skipped my graduation from college
For
because
tour.
yeah, I was leaving. I was leaving to go tour with a different band that was based in Europe, and I like the graduation ceremony was like the day after the flight, and I was like, meh, I gotta go, you know. So yeah, so I guess I graduated, but I never went. And then the next time they were like, oh, but you could go to this ceremony. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be in Nashville in the studio, so like yeah. But I mean, my parents were cool. I was lucky in that way. They were like, sure, you can stay out till 3 a.m. to see your friend's band play when you're 17. Like, that's fine. Just don't drink. Like, they were pretty chill.
Yeah, I was very lucky that way too. I mean, I grew up with, my older siblings laid the groundwork for basically things for me to be the baby, be a little easy, to the point where I grew up 20 minutes outside of New York City.
Right.
And it was, I'm 15 years old. My friend's got his license. We're going into New York City to go see a punk show. And my mom's like, okay, just when you come in, make sure you wake me up or just give me a kiss and let me know you're home. And like, I even look back at that now. I'm like, what the fuck were they thinking? Like, how did they let me do that? Like, that's ridiculous. Nobody would do that nowadays. I'm like, but we were fine. Like, we were fine. And thanks to, my brother and sister for laying that groundwork for me to be allowed to just be like, yeah, no, Matt's picking me up. Show starts at like 10:30. I'll be home by like 2:30. I don't have school tomorrow. I had school the next day, but I just went really late. They didn't have to know, but they were working. But it was still like they just let you do it, and I was like, "That's crazy." I talk to my friends now, like, I'd never let my fucking kid do that in a million years.
I mean,
no way.
but I mean, I'm sure, like, we're probably a similar age. We grew up in a different time period. Now, preface to say, I literally grew up in the middle of nowhere. The population of this hamlet or whatever was like 18 people. And, the school was like a 1 hour bus ride away. And, you couldn't even get a pizza delivered. The nearest pizza place was like, 20, 30 minutes away.
Didn't know you even had pizza up there.
You could, yeah. Like, I mean, you could ride your bike to this convenience store and back. And like, that was like a 4 hour day. Like, so, I mean, like the trouble you were going to get into involved like falling into the creek or like falling off a fence post. Like there was, and so if you were going somewhere, your parents were driving you. So it was not, you know what I mean? All I wanted to do was like run around the yard and make up songs and like play dress up. Like I was a very goody kid. I wasn't really into any trouble. And on a Friday night as a teenager in that area, you have two choices. You go to the church youth group hangout, or you like go to somebody's shed party and do keg stands, like neither of which really appealed to me. So I'm like sitting in my room making up songs, And so, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to me, talking to friends now that grew up in Toronto or New York or any type of town with anything like, if you wanted when my sister got her license, she was a year older. I'd be like, Keela, can you drive us to the Tim Hortons? And like we would go with Tim Hortons is for everybody who's American. It's similar to like a Dunkin' Donuts, but it's a Canadian institution. And so we would drive like 20 minutes into town to like go hang out at Tim Hortons for like 10 minutes. And like, maybe you would smile at a boy if you ran into one, like there was like, it was a very, I don't know, pastoral sort of childhood, you might say. I didn't have a cell phone till I was 18, and I, in a lot of ways, I'm really thankful for that because it gave me all of this like space mentally to be creative and to just, know my own mind and to be myself, and not try to assimilate to what was going on around me, because there was nothing going on around me.
Well, then what was it like when you left and went on your first tour out of that area? Were you like, was it like walking into Willy Wonka's factory? Like,
No, I
when
mean,
you got out into that great big world in front of you that you didn't know was there?
and well, no, I mean, I knew the world was there, and like my parents would, we would travel all over, in the summers and stuff, and take us to shows and stuff. But I remember, I moved to this town of like 30,000 people when I was 18, and like I thought I had moved to the city. Like I was like, oh my gosh, and it's this beautiful pastoral little town. It's, I call it my hometown now. It's Stratford, Ontario, Canada, which, people might know is the home of Justin Bieber. But also
I don't know who he is.
Also the home of the Shakespearean Theater, which is a big tourist attraction in Canada. So, I thought I had moved to the city, and then I went to university in a town called Guelph, which had, like 100,000 people. And, and at that point, I was out playing shows since I was like 15. So I was going to the city all the time. But yeah, I remember, driving into Los Angeles and driving into New York and being like, wow, like this is a very different life. And I really craved it, like there's nothing more convenient than, Uber eating a pint of ice cream to your house at 2 a.m. just because you can, you know?
It's available. They wouldn't make it available if you didn't have to do it.
It's not a great life choice, but you're doing it anyway.
Well, that's one of my big things about, cities. I find, growing up outside of New York City and having it so close, a lot of people, I have a lot of friends throughout the country, and they're like, man, you go in the city all the time, right? I'm like, I honestly just go in for music now. It's like, I kind of took it for granted for a long time. And, now I don't take anything for granted. I had tragedy in my life, and now I had a point where I go, you know what? I go, whatever I want to do, I'm going to do. Whatever band I want to go see, I'm going to go see it. I don't care where it is. And now I have a rule, because I've done that for so many years, that I'm like, all right, I don't go over two bridges to go to shows anymore. So that's like me going to Brooklyn. I have to go over two bridges. I'm like, everything's moving to Brooklyn. I'm just not, because it just takes way too long to get there. But just having that type of sense of, I long for community sometimes too, where it's like, I love to go sit on a park bench in a city and just sit there all day and watch people and see who's having a good time. Like it's a little thing. And I usually have earbuds in. I'm usually listening to music or trying to find new music, but it's kind of my time. But watching everything go by you and trying to, figure it out and slow yourself down. And for you to learn that and learn your own thoughts at a young age is pretty awesome. I mean, it took me a long time to get there, and that's got to be pretty good for you, especially with what we just went through, and being a musician in that time of, I don't know if something happened in 2020. So our listeners, if you don't know what happened in 2020, something really big happened, and music was put on the back burner. And that's what I want to know for you is, I mean, you put out After Midnight, right?
Yeah.
Right at the time.
Woofy. Yeah. I mean, okay, there's so much to unpack in what you just said. But yeah, to answer your question directly, yes, it was unfortunate timing. But I'm a big girl. I can take my hits. It's, I've been working on the record for a couple of years because we really took our time with it. I had never been a solo artist, had been in multiple bands, had been writing, for a couple of years in Nashville, and slowly but surely, like, songs started to kind of emerge that I was like, this is really me. This is really where I'm going. And they kind of collected themselves. And I started talking with a couple of my close friends about, and I'm like scraping together like tip jar gig money and saving every penny I can. And knowing that, and there's, there's talks with different managers and different labels, and it kind of is off and on and up and down. And, ultimately I realized that I was like, okay, I'm going to have to, take this first step myself and just, make something that's really who I am, put it out and go from there. So it was really a slow process with this record, but in a good way, to where I really wanted to make something that was very me, and take my time and let myself figure it out as we went. And, in talking to my two close friends that I worked on this record with, the producer, Dustin Olean, and my good friend and co-writer, Scotty Kipper, we just started dreaming up, like, what could this record be? And we kind of were like, well, what if we just call all of our favorite musicians from these different, rootsy groups and see if they want to come work on this record. And so we called half of Alison Krauss's band and half of a Grammy-winning Western swing band called the Time Jumpers, that Vince Gill is a part of. For anybody who's not familiar with those bands, these are very prominent Nashville and roots music bands. And we're pretty shocked when they were like, yeah, we want to come, make a record like that. And so that's how it started. And we kind of took our time with it, and we got it finished. And then I started to think, okay, how am I going to put this out, as an independent musician? And so we started releasing. The first single from the record came out in August of 2019, which is a song called $5 Pearls. And so we did have like a good, 7 or 8 months of stuff kind of happening. But when the album dropped, it was literally on the downbeat of the world shutting down. So it was a very strange time, but we were able to, pivot and do some cool quarantine videos and things like that. And I know everybody was like, oh, I was so productive in 2020. I'll be honest, like, I halfway curled up into a ball, because it was difficult. But the thing I did get out of it is that I had been largely living thousands of miles of home for about 9 years. And I was like, well, nothing is happening. Everything is stopped. I can apparently play shows on my computer from anywhere. And I, can write songs from anywhere. I'm going to go see my family. And I just pieced out for the summer and enjoyed some time at the farm and at the lake with my family. And that was good. It was a reset, after years of a really crazy pace. And, I'm back to Nashville now, just as things are starting to sort of move again now. Like, we're starting to see some shows, little ones. We're starting to get our toes in the water. We're getting back into writing in person. I know that everybody was like, oh yeah, we just kept writing online, man. We're cranking out the bangers. And I was like, yeah, like, I tried it, but those were not the feelings that like I was trying to make a song out of. So, I tried to keep one toe in the water all year and stay alive. But mostly I was like, you know what? I think it's okay to take a beat, take a reset, have some family time. And now being back pretty much fully in the swing of things. I mean, we're definitely still waiting for, the live shows to open up a bit more and get back into that part of it. But, back into the full crazy pace, I go, well, maybe it was okay that we rested for a while.
Yeah. Well, I also think I feel really bad for a lot of people because a lot of venues have shut down and people haven't played for a year, and everyone's going to want to play at once. And now there's not as many places as there were. And I mean, I know I was donating to my favorite venue in New York City constantly, being like, this venue can never close down. If this venue closed down, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, it can't. And like, anytime I was like, all right, I got an extra $20, sending it to the Bowery Ballroom. Got an extra $10, going to the Bowery Ball. Please don't close. Please don't close. And, I've talked to a bunch of people and everybody's like, yeah, we're ready to go. I'm like, yeah, you and everybody else. I'm like, how is this going to happen? And I also think, how's it going to happen for us? Like, as coming to see you play, what's it going to be like? How are people going to act? I mean, I really think that there's going to be a lot of dancing, to figure out how things are going to work. And that's what I'm scared about. Like, I'm scared about you being on stage and not seeing how, and the people in the audience and everyone is going to have a different feeling than they normally would going to the show. You're going to get your normal drunk frat boys, at a show somewhere, but most of the people are still going to be a little like reserve. And, that's, how do you think you're going to deal with that? Or has that crossed your mind, or
Yeah,
now I
I
just
mean,
mind fucked you and now you're like, shit, I never thought about that. Great. Here's something I got to think
well, no, so it's been interesting. So, I've been back to playing just little shows here in town. We haven't been back out on the road yet. We haven't really quite been able to cobble the full pieces of that together yet. But I've actually been out playing little shows for about a month now. And yeah, it was a little odd. I was playing like a really big hotel in Nashville, was my first show back. And it happened to be this night of like this extreme like flooding monsoon situation where like 3 entire neighborhoods flooded, like one of which happened to be mine, but thankfully not my house, but a lot of so it was a kind of a crazy evening. It was raining as I drove down, and I was doing sound check and setting up and everything. And it was strange for me because I hadn't played a show. I'd play one show in October outside at a winery. And it was socially distanced and it was very mellow. And that was like the one show I'd played since March 13th, 2020 was the last gig I played. And then I played one show in October 2020. And then, so this was like, I want to say March 27th, 2021. So about a month ago. And, I get into the hotel and we get all sound checked and set up and everything. And it was kind of all over the map. There were a lot of, I was talking to people on the break, and there were, families that like, this was their first vacation since the lockdown, and it meant so much to them to be, people had lost their jobs and then found a new job. And then it meant so much to them that they were financially on their feet again to be able to take their kids, on a vacation, or like, people were like on their like elopey honeymoon because they couldn't, do the big wedding that they wanted. So they were like, okay, we're just going to get married and go away for the weekend. Like there were all kinds of like, it felt like big stories from everybody. Cause I was talking to people, through the microphone and kind of on the break, because as it panned out, I ended up staying at the venue for another 3 hours because like the roads were shut down and the city was like flooding. So I ended up hanging out for like 3 hours when I was done, until it was deemably safe to drive home. And so I did talk to a lot of people, and it felt like everybody was having a comeback moment that evening, and so it was bizarre to go from like a year kind of basically locked in your house ish, but enjoying the great outdoors, to, just talking to people from everywhere, kind of about their story of what the last year had been like. So yeah, it was crazy. And also it was a lot of like shaking off the mothballs. I was like, oh, I still know these songs, right? Like I still know how to write. I know how to talk to people. Right. Like, to go from like zero, like basically only socializing with your family and your close friends, to just a room full of strangers, right? And a couple hundred people in a room, and you're like, whoa, this is like, there were a lot of mental steps happening very quickly there.
Yeah, I don't. When I'm in a big room with a lot of people, I do a lot of seminars for a living, and I've been doing them via Zoom, and I never have my camera on because I'm the one talking. But I don't know how I'm going. I used to think that I killed it in front of people, and now like I'm already in my own head of doing it and just being like, I don't. How do I interact with people like face to face that aren't my friends that I've been with for the past year, or my family? Like this is weird. This is gonna be weird for me. So fingers crossed that goes well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be good, because I think to me it felt like it was weird for like 20 minutes, but like you got that, like I felt high after it, I felt that high, and I was like, oh yeah,
That's
like
what I was looking for.
This is the good part of it that I've forgotten about,
Yep.
So I think, that tends to tide you over.
So you had mentioned that your writing for After Midnight was you got to write more of figure out who you were and write something, that expressed, where you wanted to go and who you are. So now I'm going to put you on the spot and say,
Sure.
if you were going to, I call it my pick your favorite child.
Yeah.
If you were going to pick a song off of After Midnight that you would say best describes you, and that's what people can hear in it, what song would you pick?
Oh, that's easy. Not okay. Like I'll say this, like that record in particular, I think it really shows people like my vulnerable side. If you meet me, I'm like a very rather like loud comedic, like I don't really care what people think of me individual. So my actual personality and then that the music I've put out, there's like definitely a dichotomy between them. But $5 Pearls is the song on that album that is like, if I were going to serve my broken heart on a platter to somebody, that did it. So
All right.
yeah, that's easy for me. But
That was awesome that it was easy. I mean, it gets hard for people, and I understand that, and I hate putting people on the spot with that, but I'm glad you were ready to go.
No, I mean, it was one of those things. It's not like a prepared answer. It's that like when I wrote that song,
I'm not saying it was prepared. I'm just saying you were like, oh, I know, like, because that's what I want people to be like. Okay, this is you don't have to go in order, but listen to this song first, and that best describes who Callie is.
No, like when I wrote that song, I felt, kind of in that moment because I think at least for me, which, ironically as someone who, I feel that I know my own mind pretty well, but I did very much kind of get taken aback in the awe and the, I guess like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Sort of the big machine that was Nashville. And when I got to town, I thought, oh, well, like everybody's ideas are probably better than mine. So like if they say it should be that way, it should probably be that way. And it was very easy as I tried to be a sponge and learn from people and work with all kinds of new people. It was very easy to actually lose what I brought to the table and who I was in that equation. And it took me some time. And I'm thankful that I did do all types of, writing sessions and gigs and collaborations and meetings with all types of people from all over the map. But it took me some time to go, no, like I do think my ideas are good. And I do think I want it to sound this way. And I do think that, this is a story I want to tell. And so as I found people that I was able to do that with and let those stories come to life, when we finished $5 Pearls, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the first piece of me that is truly me in a song that has happened in Nashville, and so I knew that. And it was really kind of the spitfire that started the writing process of that album.
Yeah, good for you to stick to your guns. I've tried to tell people a bunch of times here that if it's you and somebody's telling you it's not, tell them immediately to fuck off, because that no one can tell you what you feel, how your feelings are, and what you're putting down is incorrect. You can collaborate with people, but if someone's telling you wrong, that's what I do to people. If I'm like, try to explain my feelings or write something down and say, hey, this is, what do you think? And somebody's like, yeah, no, that's not you. And I'd just be like, fuck off, get out of here. I don't need you. Cause it's mine. I put it down for a reason. It means something to me. So for you to stick to your guns, especially you can get with a bunch of people that are going to say, nah, you need to do it this way. Nah, you need to do it this way, which again, collaboration is good, but being told to do something is completely different.
Well, yeah. And I think what I had to come to terms with, as somebody that grew up just attached at the hip to country music and country radio being a lifeline, is that, what I do musically has very, very little to do with what country music as a genre has transformed into. Mm-hmm. And I really had to come to terms with that. and just go, they're currently not, the major machine that is country music in Nashville is not buying what I'm selling, but I don't want to change what I'm selling into what they're buying.
No, and that's why I
Mostly because
appreciate.
I don't like it.
Yeah, well, that's what I appreciate what you've created, because I grew up just like you, and with country music being played in my household, and it was, Willie Nelson, and in the 80s, and Kenny Rogers, and
Yeah, baby.
my dad listened to Dan Seals, and all the older Clint Black, the older stuff, and that's what I grew up with. And to where it's come to now, which it's for some people, country music, but I don't get it anymore. I don't understand it, and I don't know what it is that I don't understand.
It's one of those things where we now it sounds so bad when I say these things out loud. Number one, like, I think we should care less about like whether or not the music fits this label or this box, but more about like, is it good? Who cares what you want to call it?
A good song's a good song.
But is it good? Who cares what we call it? But I think, if I'm being harsh, which, often I will be outspokenly harsh about this, what we have now, unfortunately, because there's no shortage of good music being made, there's so much really great, incredible music bubbling beneath the surface. And I feel that the tides are starting to turn. No shortage of good music being made, but a bit of a shortage of good music that's being championed by the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And country radio, to me, at large, is 75% a vehicle to use low IQ lyrics to sell beer to college kids at festivals. That's where we are. And then we get an industry where we sit in a room and go, oh, well, how do we rewrite the same song so we can all get a cut, so we can all get paid? And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of just churning out whatever. But that being said, I feel the tides are turning. There are so many people making great music, and I'm learning to, care less about all of that and care more about, like, when I get up today, who do I want to write with this month? Where do I want to play? What do I want to say? How do I want to make myself better? And let's just go down that road and take those steps and, let those doors open, and let's just not worry about what's going on over there, because it's not for me.
No. And my big thing is, as long as it's for the music, because I think that's, you said music being championed. They're not championing the music. They're championing the money. Yeah. I've always, teenage angst. I had a lot. I grew up weird. My favorites,
didn't we all?
Yeah, like my favorites as a child were the Beach Boys and Elvis Presley and Dean Martin, and that was weird for like a 6-year-old to 10-year-old boy to love that music.
Yeah, it was a bit of eclectic taste for your age demographic, for sure.
And then it was straight into punk rock, and then I was just like, oh wait, like, there's other music out there. And that's where I started my deep dive into, what? I just want to find really good music, and I don't care what MTV or K-Rock or,
Like, I would have paused this. When you say, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to interrupt. When you say punk rock, like, do you remember the Screamo era?
Well, I do. I'm kind of glad I wasn't. So Screamo was very early, mid 2000s.
Okay, so that was when I was in high school, because every like live music band show was like those, like, okay, there was the whole Christian rock era, but then there was like the Christian rock Screamo era, where they had these like really deep religious music, like lyrics, but all you could hear was like, wah, so you have no idea what they're saying anyway. But it was like the Screamo mosh pit era.
Yeah.
And there were bands, and they'd be like screaming like F you at the audience, and they'd be like F you back. And I'd be like going because all my friends were going. And I remember being at one of these shows in like a school auditorium, and like somebody in the band threw a shoe, and it like hit me in the boob while I was like standing in the sound booth. And I was just like, why am I here?
Yeah, I sort of detached myself from that. So it's funny too. You bring up that era of music. So my real era of music was the bad label termed. I call it post-hardcore because it sounds cooler, but it was emo, and I was
Yes.
so like I was '90s emo, and then
Do
like
you
once
remember the emo kid song that went viral on the internet?
I probably don't. I don't pay attention to shit that's on the internet.
It
Really.
was like no, this would have been like when you were younger.
Yes, I didn't
When
have a
I was in
computer.
when I
Yeah.
was in high school, it was like the I'm an emo kid,
Yeah.
non-conforming as can be. You remember that one?
No, I see. I'm
You
learning
be
something new.
non-conforming too if you look just like me. And basically, it was all about how all the emo kids are trying to be individual, but really
They're
ineffectually just
being each
resemble each
other.
other. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they resemble each other.
Look it
And
up. You'll
yeah,
like it.
I, I felt that I was, outside of that. I wasn't like anybody else, but I'm sure I was like people. But my thing was with that music that it hit me because I was in high school, like right when it started. There was a quintessential band in my life. It was Sunny Day Real Estate, and emo really started. And I try to bridge this gap to people when I teach people about music. It was only 3.5 years after Nirvana's Nevermind came out, so it wasn't that it didn't take that long to get to this new type of music, which was emotional music. But I really got attached to it and I fell in love with it. And it's called the first wave of emo. And that was bands that I loved. In like 2001 to 2003, something happened. And that's when the Screamo came out. And that's
Yep.
the second version of emo music where people are like, oh, dude, you like emo? I love My Chemical Romance. I'm like, yeah, no, dude. Like, that's not, I'm like, that's your emo music. That was different because there was a lot of screaming in that.
So
My
that
emo
was
music
yeah.
had licks, it had harmonies, it had just
Okay.
great music to it, and there wasn't a lot of that screaming.
So
You know,
I only knew it as like what was really cool when I started high school was screamo emo. And that was like, when I would run like the high school coffee house, it was like all these screamo bands and then like me singing like a Joni Mitchell song on my acoustic guitar. Like it was
yeah, and I think some of that too, and that's going back to what I was talking about. Is it wasn't for the music; it was for something else. It was for the reaction. And when you're creating something for the music, it has just this different feeling about it. You can tell in a song, and that's what I mean when I was listening to your record. I was like, when one song hits you, you're like, oh shit. Like I literally say that in my head when a song hits me and I feel a song because it's different. When you feel a song, you know it's all about. You kind of feel where you were coming from when you were writing it, but you don't at the same time because I've said it hundreds of times. I take ownership of that song now. Now it belongs to me. It means something different to me than it did to you when you wrote it. But that's when it's about the music, and that's when things are beautiful instead of putting out stuff to make money off of, which of course is usually the end goal. But again, for me, I always say if you've created a song that hit one person in this world that isn't in your family, I would say you got to take your family out of it because
yeah,
they're,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
going to love
Mom
it.
doesn't
Yeah,
count. Mom's
mom
gonna
doesn't
love you
count.
either
But
way.
you hit a stranger in New Mexico with one of your songs and they tell you that it meant something to them. You've now made it. That's it. Like, and you have to accept that and continue going based off of that. Because otherwise, I think you could get lost. You get lost in the shuffle. So if you continue to make music that means something and it's about the music, you're never going to fail. You're just not going to. And that's how I feel. Other people could tell me I'm a asshole for feeling that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think that's a good way to look at it, and in recent years, like, I've come to look at it more as like bringing songs into the world, because I feel that creativity and ideas like they want to be realized, they want to come into the world and I just kind of, they're all little song babies and I let them be what they want to be. And, then you fall in love with certain ones and then you go down the path with them and see what happens,
Yeah. You mentioned Celine Dion before as something being your favorite.
In my youth, but I don't want to hear any knocks on Celine Dion.
I'm not knocking. I'm going to ask a question now, which is based off of when you say your favorite. Do you have a a band or an artist that is your favorite? I have 3 favorite band artists that I always, it depends which day or what mood I'm in, but
Yeah.
I have like my staple 3 that are always, they haven't changed. They honestly like haven't changed in my life. But do you have an artist that you can always count on and that is you would say, yeah, it's probably my favorite?
Well, I don't know, like, and I think too, as just like an emotional person, there are things I gravitate towards. And then I think as a musician, there are things I gravitate towards. And I almost feel like those are 2 different things, you know? Yeah, like Celine Dion was like my original fangirl love. I'm a huge James Taylor fan. I feel like, with James Taylor, to me, it's a feel thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it always feels so good. I'm also a really, really big, big fan of Eva Cassidy. I think she's just one of the world's biggest talents. And, but I don't know, there's so many things, there's so many things that I couldn't land on one. Like my OG country love is gonna be Pam Tillis, but I don't know. Like I tend to just go down on these tunnels. If I don't know, if I had to pick like one, I don't know. Like I always go like, what are your 3 albums on a desert island for the rest of time?
Yeah.
And Don Williams has to be up there.
Yeah,
For me.
mine you'd never heard of, and I actually just got to interview him last week, so that was a pretty awesome.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Those are life goals.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't really, I don't think I could pick one.
All right. Listen, you don't have to. You don't have to pick one. I just have to ask you the question.
That's fair.
You don't have to answer. Now, my other thing is there something that someone would be really surprised that you listen to? Like, we call it guilty pleasures. And
Ooh.
I don't care what people say. I own it too, but you have that 1 millisecond when someone catches you listening to something where they're just like, what are you listening to? And that 1 millisecond, you're like, oh no. And then you're just like, no, screw you. I like it. But there is something that you get a little apprehensive about. Like BTS.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I'll pretty much always go for a Spice Girls dance party, but that's because, like they were big when I was 7 years old and that's what we did, but I don't know. I don't really have any guilty musical pleasures. I'll be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But
great music.
But
Just
you
take
still
it.
have. I'm telling you, I don't. There's that one. It could be a tiny, tiny millisecond. But there's that one point where you're just like, and then you say, I don't care. This is great.
Yeah, it's not coming to mind right now because like I think it depends what company you're in, right?
Yeah,
Because you've
your
got
judgy
like
friends. You could have
yeah,
your judgy McJudgersons that are out there that are in your group. I have plenty of them.
I also have just really given up on giving a crap what anybody thinks about me. I'm weird. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And I just do what I do. And I've really given up on keeping people around that feel the need to judge.
That's what my favorite shirt that I wear all the time. And I'm getting told that I'm wearing it out. It just says fresh out of fucks on it. Cause I just, I don't care. Like, I don't like it's, I go through life like, man, shit's going to happen tomorrow, regardless of what I do. So I'm just going to do what I do.
Just living my life.
Yeah.
You do you, I do me. Everything's fine.
All right, here's a little self-reflection for you. If you were to stop making music tomorrow, what would you most like to be remembered for that you've already done as an artist?
Oh, I don't know.
What would you most like to be remembered for as an artist?
I think just making people feel things, hopefully. I don't know. Like if I stopped making music, I would probably be a comedian. So, then I would
At least you have a backup plan. Many people don't.
I would unleash the other half of my personality on the world, But yeah, I mean, again, I think that's like the thing is like that I never was like, I want to make music so that people will think this about me, because I couldn't help myself. Like I was like, I would not shut up. Like I was in trouble for singing on the school bus, singing in the car ride, singing while somebody was talking to me, singing while I was at the dinner table. Like I was in trouble. I couldn't stop. I couldn't shut up. So like they were like, oh God, we got to get this kid a gig so that she can like just get it out, you know? So yeah, you know, I didn't really have a motive behind it other than I wanted to do it and I wanted to be good at it if I was going to do it, you know? So I don't know what I would want to be remembered for. I guess it would be nice to be remembered at all, but you know, I've had a good time either way.
Well, and that's the thing. You've created some as an artist. You've created something, and this is where I think where music is amazing, because you can still hear stuff that was, you know, Beethoven wrote and record. It's there forever, and someone's always going to find it. It's always out there, and someone's always going to be able to find it. And I think that is the beautiful thing of what people do. I've lost a lot of friends who are musicians, but they'll live on forever because they've created something that's there for people to find. And that's I think in all the bad, you find the beautiful. And I think that's what's beautiful about the art.
Well, and I think that's, you know, what being an artist of any kind is that, you know, because a lot of times you'll do an interview and they're like, oh, what's the thing that you're most proud of, the award or the achievement or the show? I go like, but I didn't start doing this for that. You know, it's the we finished the song and we're looking at each other being like, oh, this is good. Or we're in the studio and the song is coming together, or, you know, it's the we made something moment. Like I made something that was not there before. I pulled it out of thin air and put it into the world. And that's what you do it for, right?
Yeah, and I don't think, and you bring that up, and you know, when I put this out there, I mean, you've been nominated for awards, you've won awards. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the person behind the music. That's what means the most to me, is the person. I want to know about you who created something beautiful, and that's more important. I don't care, you know, good for you, but at the same token, that means nothing to me as someone listening to it. I'm not going to rush out and buy someone's stuff because, like, hey, dude, did you see this? This guy just won an award for this album. Like, that, is it good or is it not good? That's all I need to know.
Yeah, and good is such a subjective word, right? Because, like, as we all know, you know, what you might love, I might hate, and on and on and on and on it goes. And then I think when you're, you know, when you're a creative, but you're also in an industry, you have to take very much with a grain of salt the things that, you know, people might tell you, and just be able to be open to, you know, like, okay, as someone who's good to work with in the industry, like, she's open to constructive feedback. But as an artist, you have to be like, I believe in this, and this is my shit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it, you know? And so it's like, and you have to be able to kind of deal with both, but not lose you got to protect the art to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is the art.
Like, it's just so difficult to work with. They need to spend. Oh, okay, here we go. You know, but but yeah, I mean, you know, if we're gonna get super frou-frou about art, which I'm always down for, yeah, you've got, you know, the odds are that there's not a right and a wrong. There's simply an opinion. And if somebody's going to state their opinion as fact, that's probably a pretty good inclination that you don't need to be around them. Yeah. So, you know, you gotta protect your path a bit.
Yeah. That's what I had a friend, and I used to make the comment about it. I'm like, it's funny how the guy with all the answers doesn't have insurance. Like that was always my thing. Like, you know, somebody always had the right answers, and I was just like, but he doesn't have the simplest little things in life, but he's got all the right answers. Like that, like, used to drive me crazy. I'm like, all right, yeah, it's his opinion and he states it as fact. I don't need him around anymore. And that's what I did.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, the one thing that I will, you know, because we want people to love music, and we want people to care about it, and we want people to feel things when they hear it, and they, and whether that feeling is like my heartbreak or like I'm just having a damn good time, like fun is a feeling too, and that's a great thing. But when I feel, in my personal opinion, when we introduced the talent shows to television, we told everybody that they were an expert adjudicator on music because they watched Simon Cowell and all of the others to follow for so many years. So now everybody is a critic on music, and I think that has been an unfortunate cultural shift, in my personal opinion.
I 100%
for whatever that is
agree.
worth.
I 100% agree. You can preach it.
For whatever that's worth, I think it's been an unfortunate thing, because every show you play, well, have you ever thought about going on I was like, yes. And it makes me want to hurt myself.
Oh. Well, we are having some fun, but I don't want to keep you very long here. This has been an absolute delight. We're over our time that we normally go. That's what I love about music conversations, and we can go off on different avenues. This is fantastic. You've been an amazing guest, and I appreciate that. We end our show every week with our weekly threes. It's 3 things you're listening to right now or in the past couple weeks that you would just like people to check out or hear about. It could be new, it could be old, it could be Celine Dion, it could be whatever it is. Spice Girls, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, okay. I guess a couple under the radar things then. I'm going to throw some of my friends into this mix because there's so much great music bubbling under the surface. My good friend, he's an artist in Nashville. He's from Louisiana originally. He goes by the name of Chris Canterbury is his name. I've been listening to his more recent record called Refinery Town, but I also happen to know he's in the studio making a big new one coming out. So check out Chris Canterbury. And then one of my COVID listening discoveries he's actually a full-time songwriter here in Nashville, and his name is Dustin Christensen. And I'm now obsessed with his music. So Dustin Christensen, Chris Canterbury, and then what is the third? So I've been writing a lot. I haven't been listening to quite as much as of late. Third thing, this is underrated, and I feel I brought this up a couple times. I don't know if anybody remembers the band The Kendalls. And this is a super old school band. It was a father-daughter duo, like back 30 years ago. But I feel that it should be required listening for country fans. So okay. I'm going to throw that one in the mix.
All right. It's good 3. So my 3 for this week are, my first one is Kahala Morrison.
Okay.
He has an album called Wealth of Sorrow. You're a bluegrass girl. You like real old school country. Check it out.
Wealth of
CAHALEN Morrison, Wealth of Sorrow. Check out the album. It's fucking insanity for what it is. Like, it's just so beautiful. He was in a band called Western Centuries as well, but just brilliant. I mean, young guy with a voice of an 80-year-old. Next is the Roosevelts and James Mason.
Okay.
The album that I was listening to is The Greatest Thing You'll Ever Learn. Great album. And then the last one is the Jamestown Revival. Been a big fan a long time, saw him a bunch of times, and was literally flipping through my Creator Records, and I was like, I haven't listened to this in a while, so I put it on. I was like, yep, okay. So those are my 3 for this week.
This is all new to me, so I'm going to check it all out. This is exciting.
That's why we put out 3s.
That's the point. That's why we do it.
That's why we do it.
That's why we do it.
So why don't you have this opportunity right now to tell everybody how to find what you're doing, what may be coming up for you. If you have announcements or something you want to get, and any way someone can find your music, get your music, buy your music, listen to your music, support you in any way, please take this opportunity now to do so.
Awesome. Well, and thank you again so much for having me. It's been a delightful chat, which I know we could talk all day, but at some point we got to wrap it for other people's sake. So once again, my name is Callie McCullough. My official website is www.calliemccullough.com. I do sell hard copies of the album off the website as well, but you can stream it, download it, buy it anywhere music is sold. That's Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all of the things. And we did just put out a music video about a month ago for a song called No Good Way off the album. And there might be one more video from this album coming out in the fall. And I am slowly getting back into the studio working on new music. So stay tuned for that in 2022. And if you want to stalk me on the internet appropriately, that is, it's at Callie MC Music, and that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I don't use TikTok. I barely tweet. Every once in a while, I'll tweet something mildly inappropriate, but Instagram and Facebook, I'm pretty active on.
So the inappropriate stuff, go to Twitter.
Yeah, if you want to hear me just, throw out random comedy quips. And my Instagram is half like me just like meeting people's puppies randomly. I'm like, can I meet your puppy? Thank you. And there's photos of that. And then half of it's music. So if you like fluffy puppies, you can find me on Instagram. That's about it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been an absolute pleasure. Can't wait to meet you in person soon.
Yeah, let me know when you're in town. We'll make it happen.
Do. Everyone, go out there, pick up Callie McCullough's album After Midnight, listen to it, and have a great fucking time. Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.